In the silent, gilded halls of the British monarchy, a pearl is never just a pearl. A diamond is not merely a carbon crystal. These stones are frozen politics, worn as weapons, or withheld as warnings. For centuries, the royal vault has operated as a physical manifestation of the sovereign's will, a place where bloodlines are validated and where favor is distributed, one brooch at a time. When Camilla Parker Bowles finally married the Prince of Wales in 2005, she assumed she had won the ultimate prize. She had the man, the rank, and eventually, the public's grudging tolerance. But what she did not have was the key to the Queen's inner sanctum. Elizabeth II was a quiet strategist. She understood that while Camilla could be given the title of Duchess of Cornwall, the ancient jewels of the Princess of Wales would remain under lock and key, guarded by a ghost. For nearly 2 decades, a silent war was waged in the velvet-lined drawers of Buckingham Palace, and on the other side stood a young woman in sky-high heels, with a smile that disarmed the world, and a neck that would one day carry the weight of a kingdom. This is the story of how Catherine, now the Princess of Wales, bypassed her stepmother-in-law entirely to claim the Queen's most private, precious, and powerful inheritance. The first shot in this silent war was fired, not with a cannon, but with a set of earrings that belonged to Queen Mary. To understand the insult, we must look at the Grand Duchess Vladimir fringe earrings. Originally part of a massive tiara brought out of Russia during the Revolution, these earrings are a cascade of diamond spikes ending in a suspended pearl. They scream imperial power. When the Queen Mother died in 2002, these earrings were left directly to Elizabeth II. For years, they sat idle. Then, in 2014, on a tour of New Zealand, the Duchess of Cambridge stepped off the plane wearing them. It was a minor note in the fashion press, but a major tremor in palace circles. Camilla, by the logic of seniority, should have been the first non-sovereign to wear the Vladimir pearls. Yet the Queen had bypassed her. Why? Because the Queen was testing a theory. She wanted to see if the public could accept Catherine wearing the heavy artillery of the crown. They could, and Camilla was left standing in the wings with the Greville pieces. Beautiful, yes, but impersonal. They were the uniform of the state. The Vladimir earrings were the armor of the bloodline. By giving them to Catherine first, Elizabeth established a visual precedence. The future belonged to the woman who gave birth to future kings, not the woman who married a former heir. But the bypass was not merely about access. It was about the strategic withholding of the most romantic piece in the entire collection. Consider the story of the King George VI, sapphire parure. This suite of jewels, a necklace, earrings, and a bracelet, was not bought with state funds. It was purchased by King George VI for his daughter, Princess Elizabeth, as a personal gift in 1947, using diamonds taken from a tiara his grandmother had given him. The centerpiece is a massive Ceylon sapphire surrounded by a halo of diamonds. This set is not just jewelry, it is a father's love letter in lapidary form. For over 70 years, the Queen wore it for every family wedding and every portrait of joy. It was the opposite of the crown jewels. It was the family jewels. When Prince Philip died in 2021, the world expected the Queen to retreat into mourning. Instead, at the G7 summit that summer, she appeared in a photograph with world leaders. The Queen wore a simple floral dress, but standing beside her, acting as the de facto hostess, was Catherine. And around Catherine's neck was the King George VI sapphire necklace. The message was atomic. The Queen was telling the world that when she was gone, the emotional heirlooms of her father would not go to Camilla. They would jump directly to the woman who would be queen. Camilla was left with the cold, magnificent diamonds of the Greville bequest, the spoils of a wealthy socialite. Catherine was given the warm blue sapphires of a devoted father. The vault had spoken, and it was vicious in its clarity. There is a deeper, more intimate layer to this inheritance war. It involves the Japanese pearl choker. This is a unique piece, 4 strands of graduated pearls connected by a massive diamond clasp shaped like a fan. It was a gift from the Japanese government in the 1970s, but the queen transformed it into a signature piece of her soft diplomacy. Pearls are the uniform of a grieving widow, the mark of a quiet sovereign. For decades, the queen wore it to church and to Christmas lunch. It is the ultimate piece of non-state power. Camilla, as Duchess of Cornwall, desperately wanted to align herself with the queen's image. She began wearing multi-strand pearl chokers frequently, trying to mimic the Elizabethan silhouette. But she was never offered the Japanese choker. The queen kept it aside. Then, in September 2022, just days before the queen's death, Catherine appeared at the Braemar Games. She was wearing a simple blazer and a pair of pearl earrings, but the signal was in the clasp. The earrings Catherine wore were specifically designed to match the fan clasp of the Japanese choker. It was a premonition. 10 days later, the queen died, and within a month, at the state funeral, Catherine wore the Japanese pearl choker for the first time. She had bypassed Camilla in the most public way possible, wearing the late queen's personal mourning jewelry, while Camilla, now queen consort, wore a more formal, colder diamond piece. The insiders noted it immediately. Catherine didn't just borrow a necklace, she inherited the queen's taste, her restraint, and her private uniform. Camilla looked like a consort. Catherine looked like the ghost of the queen herself. Perhaps the most stunning bypass, however, involves a piece that has not been worn, and that is the point. This is the Strathmore Rose Tiara. It is not a large, flashy crown. It is a delicate, fragile creation of diamond roses, given to the Queen Mother by her father, the Earl of Strathmore, when she was still Lady Elizabeth Bowes-Lyon. It is the most personal tiara in the entire collection. The Queen Mother wore it as a young Duchess. Elizabeth II wore it only for her most private birthday portraits. It is a symbol of maternal love and Scottish grit. Upon the Queen's death, the Strathmore Rose passed to her only daughter, Princess Anne. Why? Because the late Queen rewrote the rules of inheritance. Traditionally, such a piece would go to the senior female in the direct line, which would be Camilla as Queen Consort. But Elizabeth had set up a private trust that bypassed Camilla entirely and sent the piece to Anne, a woman who famously disliked Camilla. This was not an accident. It was a veto from the grave. The Queen ensured that the most tender heirloom of her own mother would never rest on the head of the woman who broke her son's first marriage. Instead, it went to a Princess Royal who wears it with stiff-backed defiance. Catherine may not have gotten that tiara, but the victory was hers ideologically. The vault was being cleaned of Camilla's potential claims, stone by stone. The final act of this drama unfolded at the coronation of King Charles III in May 2023. For a year, rumors swirled that Camilla would wear the legendary Koh-i-Noor diamond, a tradition for queen consorts. She did not, due to diplomatic pressure. Instead, she wore a reset version of Queen Mary's crown, stripped of its most controversial stones. It was a victory for modernity, but a defeat for glamour. Catherine, however, arrived at the Abbey, wearing the very earrings that Queen Elizabeth II wore to her own coronation in 1953, the Queen Mary's Lover's Knot earrings. These are not just diamonds. They are a direct visual line to the moment a young girl became a queen. Camilla was crowned with a second-hand, edited crown. Catherine walked in wearing the exact stones that adorned the most iconic sovereign of the modern age. Furthermore, during the coronation ceremony while Camilla received homage, Catherine was photographed touching her abdomen, a gesture of fecundity and future. But her jewelry told the real story. She wore a necklace of pearls that belonged to Queen Elizabeth II's personal collection, a set never loaned to Camilla. The Queen had left specific instructions in her will, sources suggest, that her personal working pearls were to be shared with the Princess of Wales. Camilla was not mentioned. In the end, the vault is a metaphor. Camilla has the largest collection of diamonds ever assembled by a modern consort. She has the honeycomb, the Delhi Durbar, and the massive festoon necklaces. But she does not have the heart of the collection. The Queen made sure of that. Catherine possesses the sapphires of a father's love, the pearls of a sovereign's daily uniform, and the earrings of a coronation. She bypassed Camilla not through malice, but through the quiet, unshakable force of the Queen's final strategy. Elizabeth II was a master of silent diplomacy in life, and in death, she became a master of silent inheritance. She looked at Camilla and saw a chapter that needed to be closed. She looked at Catherine and saw the entire next volume. The ultimate insult is not that Camilla was denied a few rocks. The ultimate insult is that the Queen decided, stone by stone, that Camilla was merely a caretaker of the crown, while Catherine was the true custodian of its soul. When the history of this reign is written, it will note that Charles wore the crown, but Elizabeth ensured that the jewels, the real magic, went straight to the woman in blue. The vault is open, the war is over, and Catherine has won it all.